Not only has he called me, he says, but he named me. And we remember the wonderful passage in Matthew where the angel says to Joseph that the name of this child, who is the Son of God, is to be Jesus, Yeshua, Joshua, because he will save his people from their sins. And then he says, he's equipped me. I'm like a sword that God himself sharpened. I'm like an arrow that God himself has honed and straightened. I will be able to penetrate any human armor. I will be accurate and never miss the mark. And yet he hid me like a sword in the sheath, like an arrow in a quiver. So for 30 years, this perfect servant, this God come and uniting himself to our humanity in the incarnation, the God-man is hidden and nobody seems to notice him. He talks about his task. And in verse 3, he says, you said to me, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will show my glory. That's a very basic statement about the task of Christ. You are my servant, my Israel. Well, is he talking to the nation? Not this time. Israel meaning prince with God. Jesus is the Israel. He is the prince. He is everything that Israel, the nation, failed to be. He is the perfect servant. And your task is to rescue a people in a way that reveals to them my glory. Now, we come to verse 4 and the troubling contrast between all these wonderful things that the Father has said to the Son and what the Son is experiencing. And so here we find the agony. Look at verse 4. But the Messiah said, and we're allowed to listen to what Jesus says to his Father. But I said, I have toiled in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and vanity. Yet surely the justice due to me is with the Lord, and my reward with my God. So what do we see? There is an apparent contradiction. It's only apparent, but there's a temporary and an apparent contradiction between what the Father said to the Son and what the Son sees to be real. Christ's unceasing labors. I mean, just jump in anywhere in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, and you see Christ pouring out his life and the crowds gathering around. But what does he say? He says, you've said these wonderful things to me, but I say to you, my work is literally, in the Hebrew, without purpose and without substance. We could almost say it looks more like the effort of the idols in chapter 41 than the work of a living God. The idols can't do anything. All that they do ends up being nothing. And it looks like at times in the ministry of Jesus, as the crowds turn away, you could think of John chapter 6. They just turn away and walk away, and the thousands leave him, and he's left with 12, and one of them is a traitor. And you can imagine Christ getting alone that evening with the Father and saying, you said to me, but I'm telling you, it looks like all that I'm doing is without purpose and without substance. So what do you do in a time like this? Well, the sinless Son of God, this is a true struggle, but look at the perfectly obedient response. And it's the answer for us as well. Yet, he says, surely the justice due to me is with the Lord, and my reward is with my God. In other words, he honestly lays before the Father the struggle he's feeling. What you said doesn't look like what's happening. It doesn't seem that these match up. Has the Father lied to me? Is this all really worthless? Is it all for nothing? No. How do you know? Because surely the justice, the fair reward due to the Messiah is in the hand of his Father, God. And God will do what he said he will do. And Christ clings to this. Well, we're glad you were able to join us this week for the podcast. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to The Whole Counsel on your favorite podcast app. And it does help whenever you're able to leave a comment or a question or write a review.